Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming, and thank you very much to Linda Frickman and Corey Dreith and the faculty at the art department at CSU, and CSU for inviting me, because it's a huge honor to be here. It's a lot of real firsts for me. I'm from Canada, and I was born in the province of New Brunswick, which is on the east coast of Canada, and my family was in the military, and we sort of hopscotched away across the country until I was 10 and then settled out on the west coast in Canada. Being an artist is something that I've always wanted to try to accomplish, successful or not. Even at an early age, that was something I felt I wanted to pursue. And sort of through various twists of fate and my family locating where we did, I was given a lot of opportunities to really pursue that goal. The first thing I sort of decided to do was that I better learn how to draw. And I actually had an older sister who was a fairly accomplished draftsperson, and really inspired me as a young, just as a kid, to emulate her and to draw as well as I possibly could. And in coming to Chilliwack, I had the funny twist of fate of coming to a town completely at random that had a high school that had what I consider a university class fine arts program. That was sort of a crossroads for me as a young person, in that in having such a fine quality arts program, not only did they have that, but they had some very with it instructors. And so at a young age, I was very fortunate to study under these fellows who were actually expatriate Americans who happened to be conscientious objectors from the Vietnam War. They were still in sort of their early and mid-40s and were really sort of deeply in touch with a lot of modern theories in art and practices, as well as emphasizing a real strong study of art history. Up until that point, I'd been drawing and drawing and drawing as a kid, and really working up to that. That was the one skill that I really think that I felt I needed to work on. And once I mastered specifically the human figure and the portrait, I felt with those skills I'd really be able to push on and to accomplish anything I wanted, be it abstract or realism or what have you. So my time in high school, it gave me some of the studio courses and was teaching me really a lot of the basic techniques, but there was really one sort of thing that to this day has been the key to what it is that I'm doing now, and I think the key to really sort of being a painter in the sort of ironically in the late 20th century, and that is the study of photography. I think up to that point, as I said, I was sort of drawing a little bit, well, quite a lot here and there, but it was the act of lifting a camera up to my eye that really started turning the wheels of my brain in motion in learning composition, and as well as the studio classes. So I'll start out with some works here done in high school. What happened was in taking the studio classes in the high school, the photography classes were done a lot on the campus of the high school and just sort of around the classrooms. The most obvious subject is your fellow students. I was doing photography and studying at school in all my studio classes in art history, and then going home at night and being fortunate enough to have a small studio in my parents' home that they were kind enough to allow me to set up, and taking the photography from the school and taking the skills I was picking up at the high school, which was really, as I say, a great open-minded, really with it place to study art, and going home and working in the studio and kind of laying out some of the photography that I had done and establishing my methods really early on. I started out working on a large scale right away because I just sort of looking at various other artists and seeing art for real and realizing that scale was kind of a very important thing to have a lot of power in art. So for the first works that you see, and these are all untitled, this is actually one of the very first oil paintings that I ever sort of really did in a serious manner. And I took a lot of, as I say, the photography from school and took it home and just sort of laid it all out and picked through hundreds and hundreds of frames and sort of would just pick stuff out that caught my eye. I was just sort of training my sensibilities to come, to find stuff that stands out from the ordinary, and I think slowly evolve a love of creating images with some kind of a story or some kind of a sort of mysterious theme going on, as well as looking at my art history as well to inspire that. So my early works are in some ways kind of generic in that they're just kind of people hanging around. And in drawing and painting people, that was what I graduated onto in doing photography. It just seemed a really natural shift And so that stayed in there. And this you can see is sort of like in a ceramics class at the high school. And this is another untitled piece, and it's about 2 by 5 feet, oil on masonite. But I love this image because it really sort of sums up a lot of the things, a lot of the fundamentals that I picked up right away and have really carried on through to now, right up to the present moment, in that it's, you know, students dealing with a camera, and this piece really kind of symbolizes that period for me in high school, which was between 1986 and 1988, by the way. And again, I'm just sort of experimenting with composition and just looking at stuff that just kind of jumps out at my eye, and nothing really pre-planned. It's all very spontaneous. I'm going in and taking many photographs and just kind of plugging away and just mining to see what I can really come up with and what catches my eye. And this is one of the later works done in my studio or my high school career, another untitled work, and again about 4 by 5 feet. Up to this point, I've just sort of been picking single frames of photography that I've been working from. But this piece, I've gotten to the point where I'm starting to mix and match photography, and I'm working from separate images and really compositing and using the camera as more of a sketchbook as well as just kind of a sort of a one-trick item. And so this is composed from 3 separate frames that I had shot, and this was kind of just sort of the smoking area and the hangout place at the high school. And like I said, I just sort of made the natural shift from studying just sort of life drawing and sketching people, and it just seemed the most natural thing to observe the people around me and to sort of work with the topic that I was most comfortable with, rather than trying to be ambitious and sort of strike out into sort of grand themes. So, I mean, needless to say, my high school experience really gave me a jump start. You know, it sort of put me 2 years ahead of things. By the time I graduated in 1988, I really had a feeling that a career as an artist was just really something that I was going to pursue. It just was, there was just no doubt about it in my mind. So from there, I moved on to Fraser Valley College in the Fraser Valley, which is now the University College of the Fraser Valley. And oddly enough, it wasn't nearly as positive an experience as my high school experience was, in that specifically my drawing and painting teacher was a very traditional, old-school European fellow. And by this time, my methods of using photography were firmly entrenched. I was only 19, but I really felt that I'd found the geography I was very comfortable with and was really running with that. So. And again, keep in mind, these weren't student works. These were works done sort of parallel to my student career. I'll just move on to some works from my college, rather. And this is from a series of 4 pieces called So Much Less Divine. And I think you can sort of see the influence of art history. As I said before, I kind of had a slightly negative experience in my college career. It was sort of 1/3 negative and 2/3 positive, in that my drawing and painting was sort of one heck of a challenge, but the art history and the other studio courses I took were really a continuation of what I'd learned in high school, and was really carrying me I think quite readily and quite far, quite fast. And so that sort of made up for any kind of negative things I had to put up with. I got to the point where ideas were starting to present themselves before I would do photography. This work is a break from the previous ones in that it's an idea I had preconceived, rather than just sort of hoping for good luck by doing photography, just sort of friends hanging out and that kind of stuff. And I definitely say my studies in art history at Fraser Valley College were very instrumental in helping me gain a great respect for the history of art, which I think is obviously very important, as well as a good working knowledge of drawing and those skills. And this is fairly obviously kind of a pseudo-religious image, like you would see from the Renaissance or sort of pre-19th century. But again, I was getting to the point where I really was becoming keen on images that were mysterious. Like, it wasn't enough to just simply paint people and just sort of enjoy that representational aspect of kind of recreating your friends. It was more a matter of really showing somebody a puzzle, like really giving people something to ponder as well, and hopefully kind of sort of hook them in and really get an idea of what they're thinking as well. And this is the same piece from that series. and just sort of oddly inspired by just seeing a pair of scissors on the floor one day, and kind of mixing a generic suburbia image with sort of pseudo-Christian themes, you know, like kind of a benediction of the Virgin Mary or something similar. But in any case, it was these works done at home while I was studying at college that were sort of became double-edged works for me, this particular series, because the painting and drawing teacher in my second year wouldn't allow these works to be shown in the second year student exhibition, because he felt that the fact that they were done from photography was essentially akin to blasphemy. So, but in many ways that was more of a positive experience than a negative one, in that it certainly pointed out to me that you know, that this was what I wanted to do, and if my methods weren't to their liking, then that was too bad, and that was something I was going to go on and do. So ironically, my art history professor gave me a submission for an exhibition in Vancouver called Artropolis 90 that was sort of a salon de refuse against the Vancouver Art Gallery, which is the main art establishment there. It was sort of set up by the arts community because they felt that they were being left out to some degree. And so they had certain sections that were open to submission to everybody sort of in British Columbia. And I just sort of naively, I guess, applied to one of 50 spots, and out of 500 applicants, I was, much to my surprise, was chosen to participate in the show, which is actually